The other day I went fishing for the first time in about a month. My wife just had surgery on her hip. She had a metal piece put in her hip, and I had to hang around the house. So anyway, I went fishing the other day, and I'm going to tell you this story. I came back, and my garage has one double door and one single door, and the single door is where I keep my boat. So I backed it in as usual. I hooked the boat, and as I got in the car, I hit the remote to open up the double doors on the garage, like I always do, and then put the car away. Well, this time I heard a horrible noise. I mean, terrible. And so I jumped out of the car and ran in there, and the garage door had not opened at all. Well, when I opened up my car, the garage door was still closed, but it was making an ungodly noise. So I ran in there, pushed the button on the garage door opener, the electric opener, and made it stop jumping up and down. It was just rattling and acting crazy. So couldn't figure out what was going on. I just figured the chain came off or something. Well, I disconnected the opener from the door, and I couldn't raise the door. And then I realized that one of the big springs that help you open the doors had broken. And I was able to move the door then once I released it from the electric opener, but it was really heavy, and I wasn't sure once I got it up as high as I could reach that it would stay up. So I waited till my son-in-law came by, and he and I picked it up and we set it up, and it was fine. Once we got it up in the air about eye level, then I was able to pick it up. But I was thinking about how heavy it was, because only one of the two springs had broken. So if both springs would have broken, I probably wouldn't have been able to move it at all, because I had that one spring still helping open it. And last summer, when I had all my grandkids here, I noticed that when I'd go to open the garage doors, if they were around, as soon as they got 2 feet off the bottom, they'd try to run under it, and I kept yelling at them to quit doing it. And I mentioned it to their mothers, and or actually one mother, one of my daughters, and she didn't act like it was a big serious thing as long as it wasn't going down. Well, I thought maybe I was just being overly protective. But after seeing how heavy it is when one of those springs breaks, just keep your kids away from those doors, whether they're going up or down. Of course, if they're going down and the spring breaks, they're going to drop anyway. So just be careful. Those eyes, those electric eyes that stop it from going down, that just stops the opener. It just reverses it and it makes it pick it back up. But that's not strong enough to pick up a big door. So be careful. I don't want your, I don't know if it ever happens, but the chance, that door had been there for 20 years, or actually, 20 years. So those springs had lasted for 20 years. And I had a guy come out, and for $300, they replaced both springs. They're actually bigger around now, so they had to modify it a little bit. But they fixed it in an hour. But anyway, then I went, when they got the new springs on it, actually before that, I'd tried the opener disconnected from the door, and it went back and forth fine. So I thought everything was okay. But then when we hooked the door back onto it, it wouldn't pick it up. It'd sit there and shake like it was when it was hooked on the other one. And after the guy left, he told me that he thought it just stripped the gears on a sprocket. Well, when I took it apart, the sprocket was fine, but the gearbox had blown apart, like busted it in two. It was still all up there, but when you put pressure on it, it would open up and then the gears would slip. So now I'm in the process of finding a garage door opener. I'm trying to find one that's made in the United States. I went to Lowe's the other day. They didn't have one made in the United States. It was made in Mexico. I went to Home Depot, same thing. All of them are made in Mexico. I went to where else? I don't know. I went to 3 or 4 stores, hardware stores, stuff like that. I didn't find any. But then online, after I got back, I didn't buy one. After I got back, I found out that one of them that's made in the United States is called a Genie. But since I live in a small town, we didn't have somebody that sold those. So I'm going to go to Chicago this weekend for another reason. And while I'm there, I'm going to stop at a little hardware store called Menards that sells Genie openers and get me one, put it in. But in a minute, I'm going to go out and show you what that gearbox looked like that's inside that. It was a Stanley, I think a half horsepower opener. It's been in there since the garage was built. It's made basically out of plastic. And so your whole life depends on that thing. I mean, if it dropped on your car, it'd mess up the paint anyway, maybe knock the windshield out. I don't know what it would do, depending on how high it was. But I'll tell you what, those doors, they're a lot heavier than they look. So anyway, I'm going to turn this camera around, actually flip it, and go in and get on the ladder so you can see the gearbox that's inside this little thing. I'd never taken it apart. When I installed it 20 years ago, you know, it's all put together. You just bolt it up there. So here you go. I'm going to let you see it. And again, be careful. Those doors, up or down, you know, they're always actually being hung on a spring that can break. In fact, the guy that replaced these springs for me told me that usually after 10 years they break. They won't replace one spring. They want to replace them both. So just be careful. Okay, bye. Oh wow, there's not enough light up here. I'm going to have to put a flashlight on or something so you can see. Okay, let's see. Right up in there, you can see the gears and stuff. Busted the case right in two. Right up in here. You see how I take a finger and take it apart? This is probably just a worm gear in there. And that's for the power up to the chain. I thought it would be just a sprocket, but it's not. It's the actual little gearbox. Okay, so I'm going to put this door down so you can see the springs they put in it. Okay, so I've released that. I'm going to pull the door down. See, as the door goes down, it winds up the spring. I let go and it just sits still. That's the spring that broke, this one right here. It wasn't quite as big around as that one. They had to modify it a little bit. And like I say, it cost $300 even. Didn't take them very long to fix it. As you can see, it's nothing fancy, and it's made out of real thin metal, and but it's heavy. Don't let your kids run underneath it, and I don't care whether it's going up or down. It's just not safe. It's hanging on those springs. So I'm going to put a new opener in it. I'm going to stick with the chain. I'm not going to trust a little piece of belt to hold it up. If it would have been a belt, it would have probably just ruined the belt and not the opener itself. I got a feeling that when I hit the button the other day that it probably went up about a foot and then the spring broke or something, and then it just tore itself apart trying to hold it, but it couldn't do it. Well, there it is. You can see this one's broken. That one's not broken yet, but they tell me they're going to put both springs on because they say that once one breaks, the other one's probably going to break too. I can't imagine what would happen if both springs broke and it was half the way up. It's amazing how hard it is to pick it up without the springs. Sheets of styrofoam on there so I can warm it up in here in the winter when I want to work on stuff. This is just from packing equipment from where I used to work. They used to have a hard time getting rid of this stuff. They did some windows, and so I just carted it home. Did both of us a favor. I got rid of that, and I got some insulation. So hopefully they can fix that. I've messed with these a few times, but I just don't like it. Anyway, be careful. If you got kids around or pets, I know they got lights there for when you're letting it down. No, that's fine, that works. But when it's going up, there's no protection. This thing only protects when it's coming on the way down. So if it starts raising up and you don't want to drive under it or anything, just wait till it goes all the way up. Once it's up there, it pretty much stays, even if there wasn't any springs. It's basically in this height right in here, you know, like eye level. If that spring would break there, I noticed when we picked this up manually, if I could get it above, you know, eye level, it wasn't so heavy. But man, when that thing is below eye level, it's heavy. I could see some damage, maybe even death. So just be careful. We take these things for granted, and like right now I've noticed my lights in here have been flickering and off and on. They're not doing it now. But I'm going to get into my fuse box here in a minute and check all the connections and make sure they're tight. Take out the fuses and make sure they're tight and clean. But something was doing it last night. I don't know why they were flickering like that. You'd think if I had a underground cable busted or something, it would be flickering more because it rained last night. And I'm just kind of hanging around here waiting on the garage door people to come. But talk about safety, I could work on that live, just open up the box. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it off in the house where the breaker is. That way there's no power in here. I had to work on enough stuff live when I was doing this for a living. I don't need to do it here at home.